Hey everybody, Halloween's almost here, and that means Halloween board gaming, getting together, parties, and getting together with friends, family, and loved ones for some fun family activities. And the best thing to do at Halloween for fun family activities is some nice Halloween-themed board gaming. So what I have here is a list of 10 great Halloween games to bring out with various amounts of players, various amounts of gaming groups, and various people who enjoy various levels of board gaming. Now, before I put this list of 10 games together, there's a couple rules I made for a list. First important rule, and the most important rule of this list, is that every game on this list has to be available. It can't be going out of print, pretty much out of print, unavailable, or basically a game that you can't get a hold of. Now, one of the games is going to cut it very, very close, not to give it away, but I believe it's number 7 on my list. And it's supposed to arrive just before Halloween, so I'm hoping it makes a cutoff. If it doesn't, well, I'm sorry, but hopefully it's supposed to arrive on time. And the other requirement for this list is, since this is a list of board games for a group of people, I'm automatically excluding any game that's for 2 players only. Now, I know there's some great games, such as Space Hulk, where you can use some various different rules to allow it to be team-based or things like that to make a play for more than 2 players. But it's basically a 2-player game, so it's basically not going to be on this list at all. So, 10 great games to play on Halloween. The rules are, have to be in print, and they have to be playable for more than 2 players. So let's begin with number 10. Number 10 on the list is Mansions of Madness. Now, Mansions of Madness is a game from Fantasy Flight Games. It's for 2 to 5 players. Average playtime is actually going to be pretty much up there. You're looking at about a 2+ hour game, especially when you throw in the setup time and basically just trying to play the game. Now, the cool thing about Mansions of Madness, and I must preface this because I did a review for Mansions of Madness a couple of years ago now, pretty much when the game came out, and it is a couple of years old now. And when I did my original review for the game, I wasn't too impressed with the game, but one thing that's really cool about Mansions of Madness, and it's actually moving it onto this list, is that over the years they've improved the game. They brought out lots of scenarios, lots of adventures, and they made the game even better. And that's really cool because this is basically a scenario-based game where you're playing through the worlds of H.P. Lovecraft, doing various different things and storylines that feel very, very thematically like they match the worlds of H.P. Lovecraft. In Mansions of Madness, this is a team-based game where one player is basically playing the great old ones, the enemies of the players. They're controlling the mansion, the bad guys, the great old ones, the followers of the great old ones, and basically everything that's going on, while the rest of our players are survivors who have come to this mansion of madness, pardon the pun, to try to figure out what kind of mystery is going on, get to the bottom of it, reveal clues, get through this mansion, find out what is causing whatever is being caused, and survive to live another day. Now, this is an extremely thematic game. It really is probably, out of all the H.P. Lovecraft games, this is the one game that has done the best job of bringing the world of H.P. Lovecraft to life. See, to me, horror games are always about a small, I'm trying to find the best word to use here, but it's always about a very small setting. To me, global horror is just not that horrific. But the horror of having a group of people in a very small setting where they're locked, trapped, or something going on, and they have some kind of horrible creature, 1 or 2 or just a couple of these horrible creatures making their life miserable and they're trying to survive. To me, that's much more of a horrific theme. So you're talking about a zombie apocalypse? Not too horrific for me, but you're talking about some people trapped in a house with a madman who is trying to kill them, and they're trying to escape, but they don't know how to get out. Now, to me, that is true horror, and that's what Mansions of Madness has done. The really cool thing about this game is it has a lot of scenarios. Now, the basic box only has 5 scenarios in it. And one of those scenarios is pretty much a throwaway. Now, I'm not going to rehash old reviews here, but basically one of the scenarios is not that great. But the other 4 are pretty darn decent. And over the years, as more and more of these expansions have come out, and they are very nice small box expansions, usually run about 20 bucks, but the writing quality, the variety, and just the gameplay had slowly improved, and these have started to get a heck of a lot better. So Mansions of Madness is number 10, a team-based cooperative game where players are trying to survive through some various horrors, versus an overlord type character who's trying to make their life miserable. That's Mansions of Madness, number 10 on the list. Sometimes horror isn't always about the horrific, sometimes it's all about the stress, and that's number 9 on the list, Zombie 15. Zombie 15 is a game for 2 to 4 players. Playtime's going to be about 15 minutes, hence the name of Zombie 15. In Zombie 15, it seems like on the surface it's your pretty standard zombie game. You get 2 to 4 players, they all play a little bit differently. They're going to go across a board that changes every time you play the game, searching through buildings and killing zombies. But here's the trick. The whole time you're playing, there's a soundtrack playing. And it's a 15-minute soundtrack, and if you can't escape from the city in 15 minutes, you lose the game. And on top of that, the soundtrack is going to have random sounds in it of zombies, and sometimes those zombies are going to bring a horde of zombies, making everybody's life miserable. So all the players are racing, trying to get their turn accomplished so the next player can go, so they can get their turn accomplished, so the next player can go, before the zombie horde comes out and makes much more problems for the players. Sometimes stress is more important than horror, and that's what Zombie 15 is, a game for 2 to 4 players that brings stress on top of horror. Number 8 is One Night Ultimate Werewolf, a game for 3 to 10 players that's going to play in less than 15 minutes, which makes it pretty darn cool because not only does it handle a larger group of players, it's quick enough that you can get a couple games in under an hour without any problems at all. In One Night Ultimate Werewolf, you're basically playing along with an application, and that's the best way to do it because it basically narrates the game and makes it pretty darn easy for everybody to go through the game, even for players who've never played the game before. One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a team-based game, except the problem is you don't know who is on your team. You're either on the team of the humans, such as the seer, the villager, or anybody else, or you're on the team of the werewolves, and they're out to win the game. The trick here is that you are all going to play with your eyes closed, and one by one you're all going to open your eyes alone, perform an action, close your eyes, and the next person is going to perform their action. Once everybody's performed their action, everybody gets to open their eyes, and everybody needs to start accusing each other and figure out just who is the werewolf, who's the humans, and which team everybody happens to be on. After everybody spent a whole bunch of time arguing, bluffing, lying, cajoling, and trying to trick all the other players, or if you're just an honest villager, just trying to be honest and survive through the night, players need to figure out who is who and start pointing fingers. If they can figure out who the werewolf is and kill the werewolf, the humans win. But if the werewolf has managed to deceive everybody, the werewolf is going to be the winner. One Night Ultimate Werewolf is a great game for large groups. It plays 3 to 10 players, and there's multiple expansions. There's a vampire expansion that should be out pretty darn soon if it's not out already. There's a Daybreak expansion, which has actually been out for a while, which adds more roles and actually allows you to play with more than 10 players. Although I probably wouldn't recommend it because it does start extending the amount of time that players got to keep their eyes closed. But with the amount of variety and the amount of rules, it's definitely a game that can be great for your Halloween party. It's hard to deny that Dracula is a classic villain, and number 7 on our list is Fury of Dracula, a game for 2 to 5 players that can play, again, a little bit on the longer side, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, but this is a fantastic thematic game of hunting or being hunted. In Fury of Dracula, one player controls Dracula, who's trying to move secretly around the board, trying to bring about his agenda, while the other players are playing hunters, trying to hunt down Dracula and put a stake through his heart. This is a hidden movement game, a deduction game, and a game that is about to have its 3rd edition, hopefully releasing just before Halloween. And if it doesn't make it, I guess I'm a little bit wrong on my list here, but I'm hoping it makes out by Halloween, which is what was predicted. Anyways, Fear of Dracula, a game for 2 to 5 players, much in the theme of Letters from Whitechapel or games along those lines, with hidden movement, hidden deduction, and players trying to defeat one of the ultimate villains. Sometimes it's nice not to have to take on the horrors alone, and number 6 on the list is Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is a game for 1 to 4 players. Plays in about the hour to hour and a half range, and it's a cooperative game where players are trying to protect the village from the demon from hell, Wu Fang. This is probably one of the best cooperative games on the market just because of how challenging it is, how difficult it is, and how well it's held up over the years. Players are trying to move around a board and stop Wu Fang and his horrible, horrible minions from taking over the village, while players are rolling dice and trying to compete with an extremely challenging game that has multiple difficulty levels, and it's guaranteed that on the most difficult levels, you'll probably never beat this game ever. This is a nice cooperative game that has definitely held up over the years and would always remain in my top 10 of cooperative games of all time. Number 5 on the list is Arkham Horror, an oldie but a goodie that plays anywhere from 1 to 8 players, and it's going to take a couple of hours, especially if you manage to get an 8-player game going. This is a game that's been around for many years, has many expansions for it, adds a lot of replay, a lot of variety, and a lot of gameplay time. But if you want to sit down with a group of players and have a heck of a lot of fun in the worlds of H.P. Lovecraft, you definitely cannot go wrong with Arkham Horror. This is a cooperative game where players are trying to work cooperatively to work around the city of Arkham, or if you have the expansions, the city of Dunwich or Innsmouth or any of the other various expansions, and you're trying to stop one of the great old ancient ones from waking up and destroying and devouring the entire world. Players are going to have to travel around the world, getting various supplies, trying to get clue tokens, travel through gates, escape these gates, have lots of thematic encounters, and avoiding horrible horrors that are brought in from these ancient gates in an effort to close gates, save the world, and stop the great ancient old ones. Number 4 on the list is me cheating a little bit, because if you have the money to afford it, go for Cthulhu Wars, and if you don't have the money to afford it, Chaos in the Old World. Nothing says horror like playing a great ancient old one or a demon from another dimension trying to bring ruin and damnation to the entire planet. Both these games play from 2 to 4 players with a base game, but Cthulhu Wars goes all the way up to 8 players if you buy the expansions, and Chaos in the Old World goes all the way up to 5 with a Horned Rat expansion. Now, both these games are area control, asymmetrical games where you're playing ancient creatures trying to bring ruination and damnation to the entire planet. Both these games are extremely asymmetrical. Both these play differently. They handle their themes extremely well, and both of these are great Halloween-themed games. Nothing says Halloween like zombies, and number 3 on the list brings the zombies, Last Night on Earth. Last Night on Earth is a game for 2 to 6 players. It's a team-based game where 1 or 2 players are going to control the zombies, while the other players are playing the survivors trying to survive a scenario. Now, it is a scenario-based game. Players are going to pick any one of numerous scenarios thanks to many expansions, including the most recent expansion, the Timber Peak, but they're very varied scenarios, such as trying to find a gas can, to fill up a truck to get the heck out of Dodge, or just trying to destroy all the zombies. There's lots of theme, lots of replay, and lots of variety. It may not always be balanced, it may not always be fair, but it's always going to be one heck of a fun zombie ride. That's Last Night on Earth. Number 2 on the list is a little bit of a divergence, but we can't fail to admit that the board game and the role-playing game hobbies are both starting to merge just a little bit. It's been very popular for board gamers to get their role-playing game style fix on with some of the more thematic board games, such as Descent, and other games that offer a thematic scenario that you're going to play through a quest line to complete a role-playing style adventure. And RPGs are starting to borrow more from the board game compatriots, and that's where we get Dread, the role-playing game. Now, don't be scared off by the term RPG, because Dread is definitely more of the one-shot style game, where players are playing with a Jenga set and they're building a Jenga tower. That sounds kind of weird until you realize just how awesome it really is, because nothing adds tension like horror telling, horror stories, and the tension of not having that Jenga tower fall down. It seems weird, it seems different, but for a cheap price, you can get it online at DriveThruRPG for only $3. Dread the RPG is a one-shot adventure that allows you to play through some of the most interesting scenarios, the very thematic horror-based scenarios, while you're trying to prevent the Jenga tower from falling and losing your life in the world of dread. Finally, number 1 on the list is Betrayal at House on the Hill, a game for 3 to 6 players that's going to play anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. Now, while Betrayal at House on the Hill isn't always perfect, the scenarios aren't always perfectly matched up, it is perfectly thematic, with over 50 different scenarios for players to play through that match many of the classic tropes from the 80s and 90s horror movies that we've all seen. Betrayal at House on the Hill offers tons and tons of replay and tons of theme. Seeing Betrayal at House on the Hill, the game's going to play differently every time because the players have discovered a mansion, and for some crazy reason they all decide to go inside and explore, and for another crazy reason they all decide to always split up and try to explore this mansion where various horror tropes are going to be encountered. Players are going to be exploring this mansion until suddenly a haunt is going to occur, and one of the players is going to betray every one of the other players. Another classic trope from all the horror movies. Now, while like I said, Betrayal at House on the Hill isn't always perfect, the haunts aren't always balanced, but it's always going to match the theme of Halloween. That's Betrayal at House on the Hill. I hope you enjoyed this list of 10 great Halloween games to play on your Halloween season. I tried to pick a wide variety of games that offer various player counts, various player abilities, and various amounts of fun. If you enjoyed this list and you enjoy these video series, please subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, as always, leave them in the YouTube comments down below. You can always email me at offtheshelfboardgamereviews. That's otsbgr@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this video, press that like button and please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Number 9 on the list is Zombie Kitty, Attack of the Table Crunching Cat. Watch as he jumps up on the table and paces horrifically back and forth, staring at me while I try to record a video, knowing deep down that if he sits here on the table, the horror is the video will never be finished because he's going to glare at me and stop me from recording my Dum dum dum! The zombie apocalypse is for 2 to 4 players, and sometimes there's a cat allowed to play. The cat controls the ultimate zombie that stomps across the board, and when he jumps up, you pretty much all lose because the pieces go flying across the board. But eventually he passes out on the table, begging for attention, refusing to move until he gets attention.